You're listening to Season 2 of Conversations with Kathy, the podcast for women who are looking for a place filled with honest conversations, tangible takeaways, and new perspectives on life, love, and everything in between. And I'm your host, Kathy Ann Roach. Let's jump right in. I must sadly confess that before chatting with Natasha, I had not given the subject of miscarriage much thought. So I didn't know that some statistics say that 10 to 20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage. And when I saw the quote, "Before I carried the pain, I carried you, and in my heart I carry you still," I was able to, at that moment, get a slight glimpse into what Natasha was explaining to me. As a mother of 2 amazing rainbow babies, Natasha shares her journey with us. Natasha Carlow is a mother, a counselor, and author of the children's book Happy Tears and Rainbow Babies. So let's jump right into my conversation with Natasha. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me, for reaching out to me, because this is something that I am kind of embarrassed to say that I haven't thought about. You know, that it hasn't sat in my consciousness in terms of what women do in the situations that we are going to discuss today. So I am really happy that you decided to talk about this and to bring this to light. Yeah?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And let me immediately put you at ease. This is not something that we want women to have to think about. This is not the type of thing that anybody should really be thinking about, unfortunately, until the situation comes to you or comes to someone that you love. And that's why we talk about it. That's why we share, so that, you know, when the situation does arise, people know that there are places that they can go to and people that they can reach out to.
Right.
So you're fine.
Okay. So today the situation that we're actually talking about is miscarriage. And what happens when a woman has a miscarriage, and how does she deal with that situation going forward? How do the people around her react to that situation? So tell me about it. Tell me a little bit about your own story and how you got into this place where you now advocate for this.
Okay, so my name is Natasha Carlow, and in 2014, I was pretty much still a newlywed. I was not even married for a year yet. Mm-hmm. And my husband and I found out we were pregnant with twins, and we were ecstatic. We knew that there was a long journey ahead of us. The doctors were very cautious, you know, first pregnancies, double pregnancies. They gave us a very realistic picture of it. But still, we were young. We were very much in love, very, very happy. So we were preparing our lives to welcome our children. And at just about 4 months, you know, I went in for a routine check, and there was no heartbeat. My babies were gone. So there was none of the usual warning signs. There was no pain. There was no bleeding. This was me going in to find out the sex of my babies and being met with this news. So naturally, I crumbled. I fell apart. And, you know, my husband and I, we really worked. We really rallied our resources, because professionally, I work as a counselor. So I had seen miscarriage. Somewhat clinically, I had seen miscarriage, and you know, I may have noted somewhere in the back of my mind that, oh, this is common. This happens pretty often, but certainly you never think this type of thing would happen to you. Yeah. But we use all of our resources, and we really try to piece our life together. And soon after, we were pregnant again. Cautiously excited this time. Yeah. And unfortunately, this pregnancy was even shorter than the first. So there I was, 2 miscarriages in, just devastated, just unsure of how to deal with this aspect of life. You know, you may be able to rally after 1, but after 2, you're definitely a failure. There's no coming back from this. You know, me saying to my husband, you know, if you want to move on, I understand, feeling like a complete failure as a wife, as a woman. My mother had 8 kids, not a problem. Yes. So there was something wrong with me.
Me physically, absolutely. My body. Is it that because you said, okay, you had a miscarriage and then shortly after you got pregnant again? Is that a common thing in terms of women trying to replace, say, okay, well, I lost the baby, let me try to do this again as quickly as possible?
The research is not clear if it's just a matter of sheer willpower, if there's some hormonal medical explanation for this. But usually for women, and I'm very aware that this is not true for every woman, but usually what happens is within the year, most women are pregnant again. But again, we're not sure if this is sheer willpower of wanting to have a baby and doing the things to have a baby, or if there is an actual medical explanation for this. But I do want to touch on something you did say, because that's very important. The idea of replacing a baby.
Yes.
Right? But we're going to come back to that.
Yes.
Right? So
because I'll tell you why that comes up too, because there's a friend of mine who told me a tragic story of a person in her neighborhood when she was a child who had lost 7 children in a fire. Right? 7 children in a fire. And what this woman proceeded to do after was to get pregnant 7 more times and name each of these new babies after the names of the children who had died in the fire. So I know something, quote unquote, broke her in terms of emotionally in her now trying to replace these children that she had lost. So, that's why I use the term, is it that sometimes a woman feels that I have to have another baby because I've lost this baby before.
So the term aside, I know for me personally, one of the things that I felt was I can't keep feeling like such a failure. I need to be able to, I need to succeed at this. I need to be able to prove to myself, prove to my husband, to prove to whoever is paying attention that I can do this, right? So again, there we were, 2 miscarriages. And, fortunately for me, it once again did not take me very long to conceive, did not take us very long to conceive. So I was pregnant again, all within 6 months. Right. So I had 2 miscarriages, pregnant again within 6 months. And thankfully, this baby was born healthy.
Right.
And, I remember being with my daughter and being absolutely in love. There was no question that I was in love with this girl. But I remember that there were still other feelings. I was still grieving the babies that I lost. And I remember saying, you're being ridiculous. Maybe you have postpartum depression. Maybe you're just ungrateful. Maybe you're a bad Christian for feeling all of these feelings came to me.
Yeah.
But what I could not do was deny the feeling. Right. I would dream about my twins. I would dream about that other baby. I would dream about all my kids being together, what they would all look like. And I wasn't sure if this was a healthy space for me to be in, or if or if this was a common experience. So I started researching and I started listening and reaching out to other parents and other people who've experienced this. And I realized how common the experience of joy and grief. There's that image of joy and grief holding hands and walking through a field. And that for me became a very lived experience. And I realized that I was not alone. I realized that so many women who experienced this had those same feelings. And so I remember really sitting with myself and saying, okay, what am I going to do? How do I make it so that whoever comes after me on this journey doesn't go through these months of feeling like they're the worst person on the face of the earth, having these feelings and having guilt and missing what their life could have been like. And of course, loving where they are and loving the children that they do have, but wanting the experience of the kids that they missed out on. I started blogging really just to get my feelings out, just to get it out, just to, put it down on paper and just, work through those feelings. As a counselor, we advocate that people write and people work through feelings. So I started just doing that. And people very slowly started listening. And what happened is that my blog eventually caught the attention of the owner of a much larger blog. And, the more I write, the more people reached out to me and the more I learned about this. And, I remember thinking that there's a need here. God has seen it fit to give me the experience to help and to work through. And so I started certifying myself in grief counseling and, the very particular grief that is miscarriage and pregnancy loss. And, one of the organizations that I just love is the Mama Total Birth and Resource Center right here in Trinidad and Tobago. A fantastic support group for women and families, really, because we do have fathers.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you before you get into talking more about the organization is to get back a little bit to what you were feeling in the time when you had your miscarriage. How were the people around you responding to what was happening to you?
So my feelings at the time, I think one of the things that I remember feeling very clearly was, how did this happen to me? And we talk a lot about positive feelings, we talk a lot about negative feelings. There were some negative feelings,
Yes.
I'm an adult. I have a job. I am married. I put all these things in place that should have been put in place. I was prepared.
Yes.
Why wasn't I given? Because at the time I was very sure that my journey to motherhood was over. Because that's grief. Grief can really keep you focused on pain.
Yes.
So I was sure that my journey to motherhood was over. And that's a very incorrect position to have taken. But it's where I was at the time.
Yes.
I wondered, about the future of my marriage. I wondered about my health because, when you experience a miscarriage, you learn a lot about your body and the health of your body. And there was a lot of sadness. There was a lot of grief. I think I experienced depression in a real way for the very first time in my life.
Yeah.
There was a lot of isolation as well because people knew that we had a miscarriage, but people didn't know what to say about it. So there was a lot of silence.
Yes.
Because
that's what I wonder. Do people say things like, and if they do get an opportunity to speak, I know on one hand you're saying people may not say anything because they don't know what to say. And on the other hand, those who do say something, is it that people would say things that you found insensitive?
Let me first say, I am 7 years out for my miscarriages, and time has given me a lot of perspective.
Yes.
So there were things that were said that 7 years ago I found to be, very, very hurtful or very, very unhelpful. But with time, I've begun to appreciate that for somebody who doesn't know what to say, to still take the time and make the effort to reach out to me. There's a beauty in that. And I'm thankful for that because each time someone said something that I didn't appreciate was an opportunity for me to educate someone. Right. And that was really the position that I took. Let me educate people about what I need because nobody's going to know what you need automatically, and I've really come to the place that people don't always know because this is not an experience that everyone has, one. And even for those of us who've had it, this is not an experience that we talk about very often.
Yeah. So practically, what should I not say?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. So one of the things that I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
Any statement that begins with the word at least, I want you to pause.
Yeah.
Just take a minute. I know what people are trying to do. You're trying to make us feel better. You're trying to focus on the positive. You're trying to do all of that.
Yes.
But anything that follows the phrase at least, I have found to be the least helpful.
Yes.
And I'll explain why. I will gently explain why. I do not know another experience where that will be okay. If someone's husband has died, you do not go up to them and say, well, at least your daughter didn't die too.
Yes.
If someone's house has burned down, you do not go up to them and say, well, at least you don't have to pay a light bill anymore.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I want you to pause. I want you to pause on your well intentions and really just think about what it is you want to do. You want to comfort someone, and you say, hey, I don't understand this, but I'm here for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So anything that starts with the phrase at least, you wanna just pause and think about that for a little bit.
I think it's the push into positivity that sometimes people want you to move into it a little too quickly. They don't want you to sit because, like you say, you may have gone into a little bit of depression. And that's the fear of, if I don't pull you as quickly out of this space. But I am a believer of owning your feelings and acknowledging what you're feeling in the moment to be able to move away from those feelings stronger and have a clearer understanding of what it is you felt, why you felt what you felt, and why you need to move into another feeling. But sometimes there are those who think, well, you need to get over it, and they hit you, just like you said, well, at least in their hope that you will have some sort of epiphany of, well, you know what, at least yes. But it does not always work like that.
It does not always work like that. And, you spoke about acknowledgement. And, Kathy, the interesting thing is that in terms of the needs of someone who's grieving, acknowledging what has happened is the first need that person has.
Yeah.
There are several other needs. There's a need to work through and to find support and all of that, but it comes after acknowledging what has happened. That is the most important need of the person who's grieving.
What do you think happens to women who do give in to this? Well, I am not going to think about it. I'm going to give in to the at least whatever. I'm not going to think about this emotion. I'm just going to go on, try to have another baby. I'm not going to. What happens to women who you may have met in your counsel who didn't deal with what happened to them the way that they should have dealt with it in a moment?
I don't think that I've ever met someone who has not dealt with it.
Right.
But I would imagine, based on general counseling experience, that when we leave these feelings and these experiences and these thoughts unchecked, I would imagine they show right back up in the most unexpected ways. What I have had and what I've personally experienced, what I've heard so often in my counseling is women talk about walking through the mall, feeling perfectly fine. There's a normal day. Nothing is happening. And they see a child throw their lollipop on the floor and burst into tears. That is the emotion coming back and saying, hey, I'm still here. We still have things that we need to work through. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having emotions come back and having to deal with them at a later time, But what I would encourage women to do is to appreciate the connection between our emotions and our overall health. And if you have a persistent headache or if you are sick, you would go to the doctor.
Yes.
You would get that checked out because you understand that if left unchecked, it can be damaging to your health.
Yes.
Pretty much the same thing with our emotions and these experiences and our trauma.
Yeah.
Because a miscarriage is trauma. If we leave these traumas unchecked, they can be equally as damaging to us. So I would encourage us to, however we could, because it would look different for each woman, however we could, work on our traumas and really check in with yourself and your health.
So tell me a little bit about the work that you do with this organization that specifically deals with women who are going through situations like this.
Right. So Mama Total Birth and Resource Center, in 2014, when we had our miscarriages, my husband and I went to their support group. And think about what they offer. They're not offering counseling. They're not offering coaching or anything like that. They're offering a support group. And what a support group does, it gives you an opportunity to meet with other women, other families going through the same thing and say, hey, I remember for us, this is what worked. Or have you tried doing this? Because that really helped us when we were going through our stuff. And for me, even though I was in the field of counseling, even though that I had the experience of working with families and, knowledge about grief and all of that, having it be my personal experience really threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
I found myself in uncharted waters. And what that support group gave to me was to see women who had miscarriages, who were doing well or were further along in their grief process than I was. As in, they weren't crying themselves to sleep every night, locking themselves in the bathroom at work to cry, whatnot.
Yeah.
And these were women who were able to say to me, this is hard, but you will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that experience. It took me 3 years. 3 years later, I went back to them and I said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I came to you guys 3 years ago and I would like to offer my services. I would like to work with you. That was 2 years ago, and we've been working together ever since. And it is something that it is one of the most fulfilling parts of my life, to be able to meet women and see the strength and see the beauty in even their experience, even in their grief. There's beauty in grief, that you can love someone so much that even after they're physically gone, your love for them continues. And being able to work with families and talk to women and stuff, it's really an important part of what I want to do with my life. And it has informed so much about me. It has informed, the way I interact with complete strangers, even the way I honor and I remember my own grief.
Right. You mentioned the husbands and the boyfriends. How does this affect them?
Let me tell you, I love my males. I love our fathers. I love the friends. We even have male friends who come with people, and we appreciate them a lot, because this is an experience that can often make them feel very, very isolated, because they've experienced a loss, certainly, but their body didn't go through the trauma of the loss. So they can often be forgotten in this experience. So I think one of the common trends from our males has always been, I don't know what to do with my grief because I have to attend to her grief.
Yes.
And that was something that happened, I saw in my own marriage. I remember there was this experience where, very soon after our miscarriage, my husband put me to bed and I fell asleep. And sometime later, I woke up to him sobbing in the living room, and, I remember asking him afterwards, why did you feel you had to hide that from me? And him saying that, I don't know I can't put that on you. I have to take care of your needs.
Yeah.
So because women carry the physical weight of a miscarriage, it's easier to get help. It's easier to see the need of the woman. But men also have need. They've also experienced the loss, and they have the added commitment of taking care of their women and managing their woman's health and medication and the hospitalizations and all of that.
How common are miscarriages in Trinidad? Do you all have statistics that say how common this is?
We have general statistics. I have tried to find specifically for Trinidad, but I think it holds. So generally, about 25% of all pregnancies end in miscarriage. So that's 1 in 4 pregnancies. That's a very, very high number.
Yeah.
So miscarriages are common. Reasons for them being so common are, varied. It's varied. But one of the things we also know is that Black Caribbean women carry one of the highest statistics for miscarriages. And it's always funny to me that as a Trinidadian woman, I fall into one of the highest categories for miscarriages, but that's not something that we talk about very often.
No.
So I want you to think about think about all the women that you know. And in that group, there's several women who've had or will experience a miscarriage.
Yeah.
But are you in your own groups having conversations about maternal health and female health and reproductive health? And probably not.
Correct.
So
you caused me to pause a little bit because, I'm thinking, and I think that in some cases, it never gets spoken about again, and I think sometimes depending on how early the miscarriage happened, I don't know if women just think, well, it wasn't yet a baby, for lack of, and I don't want to dance around too much because, like I said, I wanted to say what I need to say with the either sensitivity or insensitivity of the unknown person. But if you have a very early miscarriage, Do you find that women sort of brush that off versus if the miscarriage is later down when they actually kind of have feel pregnant, for lack of a better word? Do you have that?
You are so right. And let me say, this is a free space, and I appreciate your honesty. And I know that with me and in my work, a lot of people almost apologetically say, you know what, it's okay. I was only 7 weeks along. And you feel the weight of their apology. And you can understand that is coming from a place where they're even trying to say to you, it's okay. You don't have to, it was early, it was fine. But listen, from the moment you see those two lines, from the moment you learn of that pregnancy, your life changes. Regardless of what is happening at the moment, if you're happy, if you're ecstatic, if you're scared, if you're not happy, the fact is that is a defining moment for you. So even more than the age of the child is the change that has occurred within you.
Yes. Yeah.
You have moved over into a new phase of your journey. So when a miscarriage happens, there's a lot of confusion over, oh wait, so what am I now? What happened? And that is significant. It does not matter to me if you were 2 days pregnant or if you had given birth and your child, you lost your child. None of it matters to me. I think that the experience of loss is important regardless of how long you've had it or how long, it doesn't matter. That experience is significant. And my passion, my goal, my aim is to honor every experience.
Now, I know part of your reason for doing this is to get, for lack of a better word, I don't want to say more exposure, but you want to bring to light this issue and have people talk about it more, have people be more aware of it, of what's happening, what to say when it occurs in our space, what to do if it happens to us. So there are different people listening. There are different markets, basically, when you think about it, right? Because there's a woman who may be listening to this, who may have lost a baby and may be dealing with the grief of it. And there are those who may know people around them and not know what to say, or in the future, if this occurs, they want to have some sort of resource. So what would you say to the person listening, understanding that, they could be different, people could be in different spaces listening to what you're talking about right now? What would you say to the support person? Because I know you said it, let's try to be a little bit more sensitive of the things that we're saying. What would you say to the woman listening to you and may not have dealt with the loss of that baby?
So I'll take the second first. So to the woman listening, I would say to you that what you have experienced is important. And that's your first thing. It does not matter. What you've experienced is important. And I want you to know that your well-being is important. And that regardless of what the response was from the people around you, there are ways for you to deal with what you have experienced. And a lot of the times the experience is, in my speaking to people, even beyond my work with Mama Tutu, just speaking to people, the experience has always been, well, people told me that I should move on, so I did.
Yeah.
There are people who will also sit with you and talk to you about your child. There are people, and you have a right, but you also have a responsibility to find those people. They exist. They are part of a very, very vibrant community, and you can access the resources and the strength of that community, because your well-being, more than anyone else's, it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And part of being true to yourself and part of taking good care of yourself is having the audacity to demand care and to demand help when you need it. So find the community that works for you. If it's not in your family, even if it's not in your real everyday friendship groups, find communities, find support, right? Do it for yourself. Do it for your well-being. Do it for your future. Do it for your happiness. Find the support that you.
Yes.
And to the families and friends, I would say to you, if you don't know what to say, ask her. Ask her. Say, listen, I don't know. What do you need?
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, they're very articulate. I need space.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me about this baby. Don't talk about that baby. I need time. I need space. I need silence. You ask them what they need and you give it to them. To someone else, it may be, can you help me with the chores? I can't physically do it now. Can you bring over some food for my other kids? So ask her. You may find women to be very, very vocal about what they need in the moment. If I need you, you are there for me. That can do so much for the person who's grieving.
I am hopeful. And in fact, I know that there would be many people who would be touched by it. And it's a lesson for all of us in terms of how we move forward and how we help those who we may not have even known before this conversation what to say and what to do in situations like this. So again, thank you so very much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for listening to Conversations with Kathy. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps others just like you to find the show. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Kathy Ann Roach, or in my Facebook group, Conversations with Kathy, where we connect live, discuss the episodes, and share tips for improving our lives. So until next time.